Hi everyone. We're gonna check our last topic, which is testing, evaluation, and assessment. Let's start with testing. What is testing? Well, here we have a chart where we can see the order of what testing is, evaluation, and assessment. As you can see, testing is on top and assessment is at the bottom. Let's see the first one, testing. Tests or quizzes are used to examine someone's knowledge of something. And we can see if this person knows something specific that has learned. In this case, we only measure the level of skill of the knowledge that has been reached. There are hundreds of ways of testing. We can have quizzes, exams. We can have different kinds of questions at the end of the lesson. So here we only get numbers. Okay, we can only draw a conclusion from testing with numbers. It is possible that the students do not feel comfortable with tests because they get nervous, because they feel they don't know and they can fail. This doesn't mean that the student doesn't know. There are other ways which we can use to determine if student knows or doesn't know something that we taught in class. Then we go for evaluation. Evaluation is the process of making judgments. So we have a test and the student marked, let's say, 9 answers right out of 10. So we can have a judgment that the student did really good. So our evaluation is really good or very good or excellent. So this is like the result of what a student did at a specific activity or performance or test. So here we can have different kinds of evaluation with numbers, with words, with even happy faces or sad faces. So we give this result a value. So students most of the times are motivated only for that value. They are not used to evaluate or to see how the process is going. Then we go for the assessment, which is the last part of the pyramid. In this case, we are documenting knowledge, skills, attitudes, and beliefs, usually in measurable terms. The goal is to make improvements. So after having a test where the student had a value or an evaluation of not good, we can do another part, which is the intervention. We can see the process through assessment. So in this case, we describe, we collate, we record, and interpret information about learning. So what's the difference between assessment and evaluation? So assessment is formative, it's ongoing. Its aim is to improve learning. Evaluation instead is summative. So we add up final scores and we have a final part, which is the final evaluation. Then we have that is process oriented. We check on how the learning is going. In evaluation, we focus only on the product. And the last part, which is the diagnostic, we identify areas to improve. We can identify where the student is having problems and how we can solve them. On the other hand, we have the evaluation, which is like the final overall grade or score that we give to the student. So at the end of the period, the student got a 5 or a 4 after different kinds of things. So what it matters in the evaluation is the final product, the final grade. Here we have, like, apart from tests and exams, there are numbers of ways we can use to assess our students' work. We can give them comments. So giving comments, it's crucial for students' performance. It happens at various stages, both in and outside the class. Let's say that a student is having a journal, so we can write comments on this journal to say what things this student is doing good or not. We can say good. We can also say that's not quite right. Here we are giving a comment about something that student did. When responding to the student's written work, it's also advisable to write them down. If the student is doing a paper, do not only focus on the mistakes, but focus also on the good things that the student is doing. For example, your ideas are clear, the structure is okay, but you need to check vocabulary and spelling. So this is a comment that the student can read, and it starts with something positive and then with an area to improve. Marks and grades. Unfortunately, we need to get grades, so we need to have the students like be graded on their work. So we need to focus on what grades they have achieved. So we can give them some value to a portfolio, to a presentation, but also to a comment that they receive every time they present something. When students get good grades, their motivation is often positively affected. But remember that grades are not the only way to see if students are doing good. Reports. Sometimes at the end of the term of years, teachers write reports on the students' performance, either for the students, the school, or the parents of the students. Such reports should give a clear indication of how well the student has done during the sessions. It is not like a student is good, but you need to give further information. Like this student has done this really good and needs to improve in these areas, and just be careful with this or that issue. Well, we have also another important thing, which are the rubrics. Rubrics make grading quicker, clearer, and more objective. This tool is really helpful for teachers to have a simpler way to evaluate something. Here is an example of a rubric. Can be for a presentation. So we have different criteria and the value for each criteria. What it means to be a 5 in topic mastery, what it means to be a 4 in posture and tone, and so on and so on and so on. You can create your own rubrics. You can give the rubrics to the students so they know what they're going to be evaluated on and how they're going to be evaluated. In here, you only need to click on which of these parts the student is doing good or not that good. Then we have something else that is really important, which is the student self-assessment. In this part, the student describes his or her process in his or her own words. This can take the form of I can statements, like I can speak about my routines, or I can use contractions, or my portfolio shows what I did during the period. So it's important to give the students time to reflect upon their own process. This is not something that it's going to happen every class, but once in a while it's good to do it. Pros. The process is constructive. You can identify specific problems. Students can reflect on their process and action plans can be carried out. So you can see problems from the very beginning, you can do something to solve it, and you solve it. The cons, it is time consuming. Just making one student report can take you 5 minutes, but you don't have only one student, you have 30 or 40 or even more, so this can be a little bit problematic. If the students do not understand why assessment is important apart from the grade, it is worthless. You can have a lot of processes done during the class about assessment, but if students do not understand what the point is of this, they are not going to be motivated to do it and you're going to waste your time. Feedback. Well, this is something that we need to give them so from time to time. Feedback, it's about like the comments, but this is like more face to face. It has to do with the correction that they need. Could be about language, could be about vocabulary, and decisions on how to react to performance will depend upon the stage of the lesson, the activity, the type of mistake made, and the particular student who is making that mistake. So it's really important to identify soon possible errors and give general feedback to all the students so they can see that they are not on the spot, but the teacher is paying attention to what I'm doing. What to pay attention to? Showing incorrectness, getting it right. So repeating, echoing, statement and question, expression, hinting, and reformulation. This is something important. Sometimes you can restate or repeat what student says with the correction. Not all the times, just be careful with that. If students are unable to correct themselves or respond to reformulation, they need to focus on the correct version in more detail. So you can write the example on the board so they can see the right answer. This is something that the students need to do on a regular basis, as well as reading. Assessment is a process, not a result. They need to understand that it takes time and they need to be receptive to comments. Most of the time positive, but most of the time as well negative. Or let's say not negative, but areas to improve. Well, here I have an example of a chart with symbols for writing like correction. So you can use this as a way to train students on how to identify their mistakes in written papers. This is just one example of making comments and giving feedback and correction. Well, this is it. Thank you very much. See you later.